Good evening and welcome to this week's recap. I am Star Smart. This week on Undaunted, we had reports from the home front, a couple of which were unfortunately sad and others joy-giving, from the continued human rights abuses of Amazonians to Amazonian Restoration Forces doing its bit in the defense of their homeland to some other trendy reports on the international scene. We brought it all to you in full details this week. But just in case you missed out, on the news in detail, we have a recap right after this break.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
Well, this week started out with news of the Buyi Colonial SDO warning those who come around only during elections or come and hide at a Yaba hotel in Bamenda, grab money and positions and disappear to desist from such act. The Colonial SDO for Buyi, Menyong Gilbert, speaking on Friday, April 14th, 2023, during the Colonial La Republique du Cameroon's so-called National Territorial Planning and Sustainable Development Planning meeting in Bamenda, challenged his Colonial La Republique du Cameroon's reconstruction plan by declaring that there can be no effective reconstruction and sustainable development in the socio-political disturbed regions, Ambaland, if representatives of the common people sit in Yaoundé and only return home during elections. Meanwhile, on Monday also, we brought to you the ghost towns being very present once again on streets in Ambazonia, especially in Bamenda. Last weekend was another weekend to draft, and that had the Atlantic give another booster of 51,009 plus US dollars in cash raised, bringing the sum total of the federal draft starting in February from the Savannah to the Midlands to a huge amount of 161,452.13 US dollars in cash. Now, we had a remarkable speech, as always, by the president, and the interim government saluted all those who contributed to us federal drafts of Saturday, April 15th, and hosted by the Atlantic Zone. Now, on African scene, we brought to you the most recent conflict in sub-Saharan Africa. Sudan generals, deadly fight for power. On Saturday, their jostling for power erupted in violence, both in the capital, Khartoum, and other cities across Sudan, with deafening explosions, airstrikes, artillery fire, and intense gunfire in densely packed neighborhoods, which keeps increasing the number of casualties in the region. While more conflicts are rising in sub-Saharan Africa, on the international scene, we brought to you the dissident FARC rebels who rejected a landmark peace agreement in 2016 that said on Sunday they are ready to set up a dialogue with the government on 16th May to begin peace talks to bring their group, the Estado Mayor Central, out of the armed conflict. And for the record, FARC dissident, which is also known as Carlos Fantino Front, refers to a group formerly part of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia. Also this week, we brought to you the commander of the La Republique du Cameroon's 5th Gendarmerie Region in Bamenda local government area, Brigadier General Ousseini Jibo, has said civilians and soldiers should stop thinking that it is the military that can stop the ongoing Amazonia War of Independence. The colonial La Republique du Cameroon's Mayor General Ousseini Jibo, accepting that these colonial La Republique du Cameroon forces are helpless, handed the Amazonia Liberation War to God, saying, "Everyone should pray and ask God, because the Bible says in Matthew 7:7 that ask and it shall be given, knock and the door shall be open. It is the same in the Quran," he said, adding that soldiers are human beings created by God and their lives are also very precious. In that same light, this week we brought to you that the Muslim community in colonial La Republique du Cameroon started a week of prayers for peace against terrorism, crimes, and a deadly Amazonia armed conflict. The prayers to mark the ending of the holy month of Ramadan comes after the military said scores of people, including the colonial La Republique du Cameroon's military, were killed this month following clashes with the La Republique du Cameroon's military and Amazonian restoration forces. Authorities says there has also been a deadly crime wave in the colonial La Republique du Cameroon capital, Yaoundé. Now, still on this ravaging war in Amazonia, this week we got a sad report. The Baliyonga local government area vehemently condemns and abhors the war crimes committed by the Cameroonian military in Baliyonga within the past months and years. But many horrific complaints from civilians within Baliyonga about the ongoing rapings, killings, break-ins into homes, and the arrest of women and young girls still persist, some as young as 14 years old, by the Cameroonian military stationed at government school Bali Town. It was reported this week that as many as 30 soldiers sometimes take turns in raping the girls and women arrested, as confirmed by the investigation teams on the ground. These actions by the Cameroonian military appear to be endorsed by the French Cameroon military hierarchy as a way of humiliating and dehumanizing the vulnerable population, especially the youths, into submission and bondage. Another weird story from this week is that of a young man who was suspected of digging up the grave of late Mr. Eufela Gilbert, who before his death was the colonial district head of Elections Cameroon, Elicam. He got arrested by La Republique du Cameroon forces. This was after this young man had successfully dug up the grave of the late Eufela Gilbert at the All Saints Parish by Yeli Nkwin Cemetery over the weekend and had invested one of his hands. From this week, we also saw how the University of Bamenda is putting its students in harm's way by using the students to fight those who have occupied what the university claims as her land. The students of the College of Technology of the University of Bamenda have been asked by the school administration to destroy crops on hectares of land cultivated by the locals. Instead of the universities using the law of order to fight these occupants, the university is rather endangering students who have come just to study to fight these people off. The students, in an outing to destroy crops cultivated on the said land, were chased by the farmers with machetes. What we wondered is, what if some of the students were butchered by these farmers? Well, let's not also forget that the roof pulling rains in Boya continues this week. Since the beginning of this year rainy season, which started in early March 2023, there have been a lot of material damage as well as loss of lives due to this heavy downpour in Boya. Also, inmates of the La Republique du Cameroon Kondengi Maximum Security Prison have challenged the attempt of La Republique du Cameroon thugs to transfer Amazonia peace activist Abdul Karim Ali to SED. The colonial La Republique du Cameroon's dreaded National Gendarmerie headquarters, with the French acronym SED, is a place reputable for torture and inhumane treatments of those incarcerated there. Aware of the harsh treatment those in the barrack go through, these inmates challenged the unwanted transfer. According to the defense lawyer, The action was unlawful, given that Abdul Karim is already appearing before the examining magistrate. Barrister Amungwa said there was no concrete reason as to why they wanted to extract him. He says, I went to SED to find out the reason, and in their usual manner, they said they wanted to confront him with someone under investigation who mentioned his name after interrogations. Well, also still on the week's report, the colonial governor of the colonial Northwest region, Adolphe Lele Lafrique, has accused France of fortifying Amber fighters. He made the statement at the 10th ordinary session of the colonial Northwest Regional Assembly on Monday, 17th, 2023. Worthy to note that these accusations came at a time the colonial La République du Cameroon's military has been unable to penetrate the inner core to dismantle the Amazonian Restoration Forces. Still part of the sad news from this week, we had three young men, Bassi, Tony, and Brolin, who left their homes on Monday, April 17th, 2023, for the farm and have not returned until this moment. These three are not young boys, but grown adults who happen to go out and not come back. The question we wondered is what happened to them? Because what happened to them is a mystery, and we'll keep our ears on the ground for when, hopefully, they are found. Also this week, the president of the colonial La République du Cameroon's National Episcopal Conference, Andrew Nkia, is calling on Cameroonians to stop killing one another and to desist from violence. He was speaking during the opening of the 48th Plenary Assembly of the National Episcopal Conference of La République du Cameroon on April 18, 2023. He talked about the ongoing war from a biblical perspective, which of course, as an archbishop, is what we expect. But then the many intricacies to the ongoing war in Amazonia were left out, which made his appeal for peace a little ironic. And in the recent war in Sudan, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres called for an immediate cessation of hostilities, restoration of calm, and the start of dialogue to resolve the current crisis in Sudan. In a statement issued on the said day attributed to the spokesman for the Secretary General, he said that any further escalation of the fighting, it will have a catastrophic impact on civilians and will exacerbate the difficult humanitarian situation in Sudan. He called on UN member states in the region to support efforts to restore order and return to the transitional path. Well, that's all we have for the news recap of this week. Right after now, we'll get the fresh reports of this week.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
Well, on to the fresh reports for today. We have the cholera outbreak in La République du Cameroon. Undaunted just learned that 5 persons have died of cholera in the center region of La République du Cameroon, and 88 cases have been detected as of April 19th, with a mortality rate of 5.68%. The information was received on Wednesday, April 18th, by the colonial La République du Cameroon Minister of Public Health, Dr. Manauda Malachi, in a release as he calls on denizens to be vigilant and to respect food hygiene practices. Dr. Manauda Malachi says cases were detected in the neighborhoods of Obala, Jungolo, Cité Verte, Biemasi, Mfu, and Nkongdongo. These health districts need to be properly handled so as to avoid its spread to other parts of the country. ABC Amber TV News recalls that in 2022, La République du Cameroon was among several countries in West and Central Africa that experienced recurrent cholera outbreaks. According to data from the World Health Organization, between 29th October 2021 and 30th April 2022, a total of 6,652 suspected cases, including 134 deaths, case fatality ratio 2%, were reported in 6 regions of the country. The Southwest had 4,617 cases, 77 deaths. The Littoral recorded 1,704 cases, 51 deaths. The South, 183 cases with 2 deaths. And the Center, 125 cases, 4 deaths. The North had 15 cases and no deaths, and the Far North, 8 cases and no death. From the above statistics, the Atlantic zone of Amazonia recorded the highest casualties. Well, Undaunted News learned also that of the 6,652 suspected cases, 5,960 cases, that is 90%, including 93 deaths, 69% were reported only last year. The Colonial La Republique du Cameroon's health minister, however, reassures public opinion that necessary preventive and curative measures will continue to be taken to prevent the spread of the disease. Some of these measures are sanitation campaigns, disinfecting households and communities, water purification, kits made available by teams from the regional delegations of public health for the center to avoid its spread to other regions, amongst other measures. Now, Dr. Manauda Malache concludes in his release by saying that suspected cases with symptoms such as persistent diarrhea and vomiting should be immediately taken to hospital for prompt medical actions, or people who suspect they could be sick can also call the toll-free number, which is 1510, for further information. Now, this is a very tragic news that reminds me of the Pharaoh let my people go story. While the Israelites in this scenario painted their doors with the blood of a lamb, I hope the Pharaoh in the scenario listens to the voice.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
Well, since the start of the ongoing armed conflict in the former British Southern Cameroons, also known as Amazonia, in 2016, a lot has happened. A lot of cultural practices have been put to a halt. The rich cultural heritage of the people of Southern Cameroons has been desecrated by the La Republique du Cameroon's government and its terrorist forces. Palaces and sacred places have been abused by the thugs of Bia during the ongoing conflict. For fear of the unknown, many cultural activities have been suspended, like the usual Fons dance that was now organized by most Fondom Yeli. It used to be a period of open demonstration of what makes the people unique, with sons and daughters coming in from all 4 corners of the globe. The Meta people of Momo County are one of the tribes that the ongoing conflict has greatly affected. They have for a long time, and with the conflict for security challenges, been unable to organize the cultural festival, the highest unifying factor of the Meta people. Since the last of a kind, the Meta people have organized another cultural festival. What were the colorful moments of the festival? What motivated the organization of the Meta Cultural Festival? While the Meta people in the Mbenge local government area of the Momo County of Midland Zone of Amazonia have communed with their ancestors, you could say, rekindling memories of their cultural practices fast disappearing. A cultural festival known as Michi Ebeng was recently held in the village of Guneko. To the president of Mekuda, Professor Njo Oliva, it is an opportunity to bring back to life their rich culture and preserve it after 6 years due to the armed conflict in Amazonia. You can bear with me that for the past 6 years now, our culture has been in the cold, so now we are trying to revive it and start from somewhere. We need to uphold the culture to pass it to our generation, he said. Representing the Fon Mbakwa Bernard, said they have decided and felt it necessary for them to revisit their abandoned mills and be natural. He says we are trying to bring back what the Meta people had years back. Some people are seeing for the first time. Meals that had been forgotten were considered meals meant for poor people. But now people have started eating food that has caused them a lot of illnesses. So if we start eating our food, we'll become natural and come back to our roots, he affirmed. For the festival, hundreds of participants and attendees were all compelled to dress only traditionally, speak only the Meta language, drink only palm wine using horn and calabashes, and eat only traditional delicacies in wooden bowls or plantain. Usage of modern items minimized and artifacts of the yesteryears were also exhibited. The festival was attended by Meta traditional rulers, quarters heads of Guneke Fundum, and the population at large, with a Mukonge dance competition involving 7 dance groups. The fun of Guneku village, Fun Fomuki, Waters did announce that the second edition of the Michie Bing festival will take place in March next year, still in Guneku Palace. This is a very interesting development in Amazonia, we must say. But then, speaking of the Boya reoccurring winds and rains, heavy rains, painting dawns with blood of the lamb indeed is something that they need to do, because the Boya, the mountain town of the former British Southern Cameroon's Amazonia, keeps
Ambazonia people them, any side where you dey, I throw a salute. I want to talk for we today about this matter where it turn all side with the hearer. Some people they call and say referendum. Some people them they propose say, may we make our fight for Ambazonia, may it be na a fight for referendum. I don't hear that talk so they, correct for my ear. Now I say make I can't tell you now. Say something they happen, may not take we all by surprise, because that book is big plenty. That English book, English word, now one way, no matter all we go that book, we will know the difference. And for the generation, I not go expect say a few book people they she done they go confuse all we. Then we don't know what the way it happen. They will all we will find we say we go enter na inside sea. We drown. We no go fight this fight reach for this level. We miss them again. We must win. We must get back our country. Because we feel lose fight, not because we don't know how to fight, but because we make mistake. We feel lose fight not because we don't know how to fight, but because we be ignorant. We fight, we not fight with sense, and we don't know what they do. The enemy take advantage. And some people then to the day where they push their agenda, with sometimes they get their own paper from inside, whether they leak out. So make I take my own time, I explain this thing for all we, may we understand. That people when they talk say this will fight for independence, so may we change up. May we instead talk say we the fight now for referendum. Make I clarify this thing for all Ambazonians. Because may I use their number one argument whether they give and say United Nations, if we give referendum for Southern Sudan become independent. They give referendum for Eritrea get independent from Ethiopia. So make we talk say United Nations will give our own referendum for Southern Cameroon Ambazonia, so that we too will get our own independence. That thing they so it dey like na poison for inside honey. May I explain what way me I know. And me I don't know pass all man. Man we know this matter pass we. Make he also explain am. Me I hear am. But me I know say referendum na something where governments for the world and United Nations they use am for solve internal problem for inside country. They also use referendum for change constitution and make important constitutional provision them for inside the same country. For example, if Cameroon want change something for inside their constitution, they want do decentralization, they change the constitution. And if they discover say they want to know whether people they like federalism, they feel make a referendum. Because any other thing where they want to do, any major internal change for inside country, they feel use a referendum for bring about that change. And when, for example, when South Sudan, they be give the referendum, they not be independent. They will be na part and parcel of Sudan country, the Sudan nation. But because of their agitation, they will just say no, one girl, one country, one girl, one country. The United Nations tells Sudan say, okay, we will organize a referendum so that they through that referendum now they can give South Sudan independence. When Eritrea, it be also get problem with Ethiopia. They say they want go. United Nations can't give Eritrea referendum. Eritrea be a part and parcel of Ethiopia. They not be independent before they give them referendum. So the matter between Eritrea, the people of Eritrea and Ethiopia, it been an internal affair. Then because the agitation we don't go too far, United Nations say, okay, we'll give them referendum. We know whether by law we carve them out as a nation. So after the referendum, United Nations give them independence. But for Ambazonia, the Southern Cameroon, we don't already be independent. For 1961, United Nations already give we independence. So 19 that this fight will be fight, so no na fight for being independent. We no be part and parcel of La Republique. So we know they no fit use referendum for decide whether we be part of, we will remain part of La Republique or we will go away, because we never join in the first place. We don't need referendum for know whether we be Southern Cameroonians. We already know say we be Southern Cameroonians. Even the United Nations na it be pronounced we independent and we be decide say we go join. The marriage waka, marriage certificate dey. They join it, we no join. Even the team will be one starter called Federal Republic of Cameroon. Chakara. La Republique don't go their own side. They go choose their own name where if they be enter the marriage with that. Which we don't go take our own name. We'll be start with them. We don't restore our own independence. We'll be first getter. How some people they can't talk now say, may United Nations can't give referendum. May we know whether we go be independent or not. How many times some man they get independent? Which country don't get independent 2 times? These people they talk say, may we talk say we need a referendum. That means say they don't agree now say we not be first of all be independent before. Say they don't agree with La Republique, say we'll be one and indivisible with La Republique. But may United Nations can't give a referendum so that we will fit determine whether we fit be separate and independent or not. No. Our case now one way marriage it be fair because marriage certificate no be treaty of.
All right, so this week has been a festive one for Muslims around the world. Eid Mubarak is an Arabic term that means blessed feast festival. The term is used by Muslims all over the world. Internationally, Muslims use it as a greeting on the feast. As we know, it's the festive season for Muslims everywhere around the world. The holiday of Eid al-Fitr ushered in a day of prayers and joy for Muslims around the world on Friday. The celebrations was marked by tragedy amid the explosions of conflict in Sudan, while in other countries it came against the backdrop of hopes for a better future. After the Ramadan month of fasting, Muslims celebrated Eid al-Fitr with feast and family visits. The start of the holiday is traditionally based on sightings of the new moon, which vary according to geographic locations. In the spirit of celebrations for the Muslim community, we had the President of the Federal Republic of Amazonia send out a message on Twitter to Muslims in Amazonia and everywhere around the world. His tweet read, "On behalf of the interim government and our people, we wish Muslims in southern Cameroon and around the world a blessed and joyous celebrations. Eid Mubarak." Regardless of the ongoing war in southern Cameroon, the festive seasons was celebrated in grand style. Let's have a look.
Africa's best.
The Ambazonian Restoration Forces from Oko local government area, Buyi County, the ambush patrol unit of the Dreaded Warriors, blew up a La Republique du Cameroon's armored vehicle, killing over 5 soldiers from neighboring French Cameroon, with others seriously injured. This tactical ambush on Thursday, they said, was a message to let La Republique du Cameroon's government know that Southern Cameroon's restoration forces are always ready to stop the indiscriminate killings and lootings in their territory. Well, the fact is the desperation and frustration from the occupier after being defeated on the battlefield by Southern Cameroon's restoration forces is forcing La Republique's government and her master to invest more on enablers and facilitators of new colonization in Southern Cameroon's territory. But this has also made the Amazonian Restoration Forces to continue calling on all genuine Southern Cameroonians to support the Amazonian Restoration Forces in order to kick out the occupier from Amazonia's territory and secure its borders and start building Amazonia institutions for the betterment of all. The Buya security team are also calling on all genuine Amazonians to fund each of their county and local government area, where accountability and transparency are visible and where power belongs to the people. The Buya security team states, letting all genuine Amazonians know that the fight is one against the most vicious empire that survives on human blood, scorched earth policy, intimidation, and lootings, citing that all must be resisted until the stolen statehood of Amazonia is finally restored. In final words of encouragement, this message from the Buya security team states that we are almost at the end of the tunnel and victory is imminent, so nobody should give up until our stolen statehood is finally restored. This powerful final message right here is from the Buya security team. And with that, we'll call it a close to the fresh reports and recap of today. We'll leave you with ABC Amber TV images. Good night and God bless you.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.